On this week's episode, what is the future for Disney with most of its with its most with its most popular properties? Is it doom and gloom for Dallas Cowboy fans? And is FIFA the most underrated IP in video games? All this and more as we once again delve into the pop culture cosmos. And we're back with another episode of the Pop Culture Cosmos. This is Gerald Glass from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. We truly appreciate you listening to all of our great programming. We really appreciate you listening to all of our great shows. But it wouldn't be a Pop Culture Cosmos without my good friend. He is, he is the star player. Well, no, I don't want, that's not a good one. He is the enigma of Humanica Media. You got to check out everything that's going on at Humanica Media today on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and so much more, including his great show, Topicocalypse, and the PCC Gamescast. It is my good friend. It is Josh Peterson. What's going on, man? Another weekend in pop culture gone by.
As long as you did not call me the Edward Enigma of Humanican Media, because that would be overestimating my abilities to be a supervillain. So thank you.
There you go. And well, we may, you know what? We can touch on supervillains when it comes to the DC universe because there is a little bit of what's going on in the DC universe when it comes to the Joker, and we can touch on that later in the episode if you want, Josh, because I know a couple images came out that were actually getting people excited, and some others just maybe not even enthralled at all. It all depends on your point of view, and we'll discuss that probably at the back end of the show, along with why FIFA may be, if not is, the most underrated IP in video games, and we'll explain why coming up later in the broadcast as well. Plus, we have Tyler Baker from the Fantasy Football Pater podcast. We've got a couple things to discuss when it comes to week 3 in the NFL, including, is it time to put the Dallas Cowboys out to pasture? They really have looked bad so far, and we'll discuss why that is in detail in our segment with the Fantasy Football Pater podcast and Tyler Baker. Plus, Rob McCallum is also here. He is going to be in the middle of the Cosmic Crossfire, talking a lot of great pop culture subjects as well. Talking about a lot of great pop culture subjects as well. One of the things I want to do before we start our show is thanks so much Go Brothers Gaming, Retro City Games, and of course Mario Party Wars and Salvador Villa for running a great tournament and challenge that we were so humbled to be a part of this past weekend at Retro City Games. It was a game night to actually promote and hopefully get contributions for the victims of Jacksonville. We are contributing, I know, quite a bit to the Jacksonville Fund as far as I know what the dollars that were generated over the weekend that will help support those victims and those affected by that tragedy are truly it's going to a great cause. I know a lot of, like I said, dollars were generated hopefully for those great charities, and I'm looking forward to doing more great things with all those entities such as Go Brothers Gaming, Mario Party Wars, Retro City Games. Just cannot thank them enough. And Salvador Villa for actually taking spearheading the whole operation as a whole, not only there, but at also Press Start Gaming Center as well. So cannot truly thank him enough, and the team at Mario Party Wars for setting all this up. Josh, it's going to be a great episode we have here today. Want to start off with a little conversation The Hollywood Reporter had with Bob Iger. Bob Iger, if you're not familiar with his name, he is the man with a plan. And when it comes to Disney, he is the head mouse, as it were, as in regards to all things Disney. And I noticed they touched on a lot of subjects when it came to ESPN, Star Wars, Marvel, all their streaming service, the future of Disney as a whole, a lot of other things. One of the things that obviously a lot of people got out of it was the I don't know, I guess was the future of the Star Wars franchise. And I think a lot of people were honing in on that first. And it looks like Bob Iger was the man who spearheaded the yearly iterations in the Star Wars franchise, which for a while seemed really smart. But with the latest iteration of Solo, a Star Wars story, going belly up and really bombing, not even getting $400 million, which for such an expensive movie with reshoots and whatnot, will never see a profit in, will never see a dime in profit. It obviously has led Disney to rethink and reevaluate its situation when it comes to the Star Wars franchise. They actually talked about it quite a bit, and it looks like Bob Iger was quoted in the article as saying Star Wars is now due for a slowdown after Episode 9. Your thoughts on those comments, and in regards to the Star Wars, the whole IP, is it going to be really much of a slowdown as far as from the movie front? Because there are a lot of other there are a lot of other things from the TV and other medium that they're doing in exchange that is really not slowing down the franchise at all.
Sorry, my computer's wigged out. No, I see that was weird to me because I don't think that they are planning on slowing down the franchise. I don't think there's any um maybe they're gonna do less the releases. I feel like the releases are still gonna be yearly, but maybe they'll be spread out a little bit more over in between each one. Whereas, how we had one in May, one in December. I don't think that they plan on having them be really close together just so people don't get burnt out. And that maybe that's a good idea. Ideally, I would like a Star Wars movie to come out every other year. That would be cool. That's kind of what they're doing with the Fantastic Beasts franchise. But, again, you have to think about it like this. Disney makes money off Star Wars. I mean, obviously not Han Solo, but yeah, I don't know, that kind of, I'll be honest, man, I'm kinda burnt out on Star Wars. I do wanna watch Han Solo when it hits, the old digital because, I heard that it was so bad, and I wanted to see what the hype was about.
I disagree with you. I think it was actually an okay movie. I thought the first part beginning was kind of was bad. I'll give you that. But overall, the movie actually had some decent points. And yes, it is not the best Star Wars movie by a long shot, but it's certainly, in my opinion, not the worst. It is not at prequel level. In other words, I just think the movie itself really was fighting an uphill battle from the start. And to me, I think, like I said, it's just an average, okay movie. But because of that, it just doesn't distinguish itself, and nor will it within a Star Wars franchise.
Well, I haven't seen it yet, so I don't know, but I was reading it, people's opinions and all that. But let me ask you this, though. Do you think that if Ron Howard had been in charge of it from the get-go, you think it would have ended up a lot better?
It may have ended up better, a lot better. I don't think so. But also the timing, like you said, had it been a December release, I think you're talking quite a bit. I think that when it comes right down to it, that to me is the biggest issue, was the quick turnaround from December to May, because there was still a lot of bad blood when it comes to the Last Jedi and all the residual all the residual comments and trolling and negativity in regards to what happened with the Last Jedi. It seems like it's starting to fade now here in September. And I think that if you were going to have to put it out, I think you were going to have to put it out in December. I think they should just stick to that December guideline. And I also think I agree with you that it should be in every other year and not every 3 years. I think every other year works for the Star Wars franchise. I think it still keeps people invested in the Star Wars franchise. But they're really not slowing down, because what they're not doing on the big screen, or what they won't be doing on the big screen when it comes to iterations, when it comes to side stories and everything of that nature, they will be now doing on a smaller medium when it comes to the Disney streaming service or any of the other Disney channels that they're doing. So it's really not slowing down at all.
Yeah, and see that's another thing too. We discussed this with Marvel, how there's all these TV shows, and now what they want to have a young of well, the Young Avengers writers allegedly writing something for ABC. it's too much. And again, with like the Star Wars stuff, it has to be really interesting because I don't again, you're gonna get burnout. And maybe that's why they're like, "Oh, yeah, we'll release a new one in theaters. We'll try to space them out a little bit." But I think with all these TV shows and all the side stories, all the comic books and books, there's gonna be a burnout. Like, you're gonna hit a point. I don't think the solution is to, space the movies out and then fill in the gaps with TV shows. That doesn't make any sense to me because that still doesn't solve the problem of people being overloaded with Star Wars, because what happens if they put all this money, I know Jon Favreau's in charge of this, but what happens if they put all this money into that and then it ends up not being, it just not ends up not being good, people don't like it. So then you're stuck with another issue. I think they need to re-examine Star Wars as a whole and go back to the writing board and see what made the original trilogy so great and actually listen to fan feedback. And I know there's division on, the last one to come out, but Star Wars is a property that they're only gonna be allowed so much grace with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that Star Wars as a whole, I think a lot of people still get excited for it. On a smaller medium, on a smaller medium, it probably will have initial buy-in from a lot of people. Obviously, Star Trek Discovery, a lot of people were really buying into that on CBS All Access. It has worked out for them pretty well. I think as well. I think it also indicates that they are looking towards these smaller mediums when it comes to the Disney streaming service and also any of the other outlets they have as new, I guess, jumping points for some of the stuff that they're working on when it comes to Marvel and when it comes to Star Wars. But there is going to be a burnout at some point on both of those franchises because you can only have so much output within those universes. We've already seen already that anything that's not of any type of quality, people really just get negative on with when it comes to some of the stuff from that's been on Netflix. They've really been harsh on that. We obviously saw with Inhumans how fast that got off the air. Yes, that to me is an issue that they need to address. The same thing could happen with the Star Wars series. Yeah, the Clone Wars is coming back for another season. That's awesome, and obviously they've spoken to Jon Favreau. They've greenlighted for him to do something within the Star Wars realm on TV or in the Disney streaming service. That's something to look forward to. But at some point, they need to maybe slow down a little bit and focus in on the movies because that's what really draws in people when it comes to Star Wars and Marvel, and especially Star Wars, in my opinion, that they need to focus in on getting quality movies up on there because the last few movies have only been okay at best, and with some of the people that are out there, they were really not liked anything since since previously, well, since the old movies from the 80s, and that goes a long way back because they didn't like the prequels and they didn't like what came out with The Force Awakens because they thought it was too much of a rehash with Star Wars, and they have not liked anything really since then when it comes to the Star Wars movies. So they need to really focus in on trying to hone in a good quality product, especially with Episode 9 and where it goes from there with whoever's going to guide it, whether it's Rian Johnson or the writers from the Game of Thrones, because one of those sets of individuals is going to be producing the next trilogy of Star Wars movies, and that's going to be something that I think a lot of people are going to be honing in on and seeing if it will keep their love of Star Wars or have it, maybe just be a pop culture thing gone by. One of the things I also want to talk to you about when it came to this conversation was the X-Men franchise, as far as involving that more into the Marvel scheme of things now that they have it as a property they got from Fox. Your thoughts on the X-Men franchise and how it should be blended into the MCU, or should it and maybe put on another medium? I was thinking the X-Men franchise may be best suited at this point in time for something on a smaller screen or a Disney streaming service. That's my opinion. I think a lot of people will get excited for that because we've already had so many mediocre outings from the X-Men franchise. Things could be just really at this point maybe be a little bit tiring for people when it comes to the X-Men on the big screen.
I'll tell you where I stand on that. I feel like there's already been so many years of attachment to these characters over at Fox. And yes, they have kind of screwed it up a little bit, but I feel like it would be weird to just retcon those people though, you know? I mean, there's got to be maybe a way to incorporate them. If not them, then incorporate Deadpool, because Deadpool could technically, you know, with a few lines of dialogue, exist in the MCU. It's just it seems weird to me to not have them be a part of, or if they're gonna reboot it, you know, make it modern. Start from the beginning, make it modern, recast everybody. Maybe keep Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, make it like a younger generation of X-Men. You know, you have the old grizzled Wolverine kind of teaching them, you know, maybe take a different dynamic. It's not Professor Xavier who is well, he's there, but maybe it's you know, Wolverine that's more a teacher to the students instead of Scott and Jean Grey. But if it would feel weird to me to make that a TV show and not have them be on the big screen, because that's such an integral part of the MCU, and I think Marvel would they would do it right, but you know, and then if they wanted to, because it just I don't know, man. Like I would love to see an Old Man Logan if they were to do another take on that, or maybe I do want to keep there's so many dark aspects of the X-Men universe. I don't want to see that not happen because Marvel is afraid to play you know, get dark and dirty with some of their properties.
Well, the only thing when I say when it comes, well, when it comes to the X-Men franchise, it's something that I've seen them, but they really haven't stuck with me. And to me, it's a matter of quality because, like you said, the Fox individuals have not really done a great. Was it who is the primary responsible for directing most of those X-Men's? Brett Singer.
Brian Singer, and then
Brian Singer. Yeah, Brian Singer. Brian Singer. He has done an uneven job of creating some of the mystique in the X-Men franchise. Some of it's been good, some of it's been not so good. It's something that I think a lot of people are okay with. It does generate some income and some revenue. I mean, several $100s, but it's not the big time MCU franchise worth. I think even their most prolific outings haven't come close to the most prolific outings that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has done. They can generate $500-600 million, and I guess that's pretty good. But we'll have to wait and see if they can even make it. They can make it even better. If they do if they do make it part and blend it in as part of the MCU, then obviously it has to be something that can get fans excited and reinvigorate their love of the X-Men franchise. Obviously Wolverine has been that separate piece that a lot of people seem to universally enjoy. I know Old Man Logan, I think, is a great concept that would love to have a part of the MCU. But when it comes to the rest of the X-Men, they really, as a whole, really don't generate that much enthusiasm for the general audiences out there, and only really for the comic book diehards have they been something that they really want to see on the MCU when it comes to the big screen coming up in the future. I think everybody's just pointing to Deadpool and Wolverine, and I think that's really everybody's just like, okay, we still want to see those two. That's pretty much all we want to see when it comes to the X-Men on the big screen. Am I wrong on that, or do you think they want to see Jean Grey and all the other X-Men individuals as well?
I think that there would be a desire if the characters were done better, more modern, if they were to, you know, like I said, just kind of reboot them, make them younger, more relevant to today's audience.
Well, they did make them younger. They did reboot them.
No, I mean,
Fox did. Fox rebooted them and made them younger, and they're still not very interesting as a collective whole. The only ones that are interesting are the long-standing ones that have been there, such as Wolverine, maybe Professor X. That's been done pretty good, in my opinion, as well. But when it comes to after that, I mean, Deadpool is something that obviously has created a lot of enthusiasm in and of its own, and obviously a lot of people love to see Deadpool, you know, wisecracking on the big screen with everyone in the MCU. But after that, it really is just, it's not too interesting at this point in time. Even Michael Fassbender's character himself, when he plays as far as Magneto, it's been kind of touch and go when it comes to his character as well.
I'm gonna disagree with you on that because I feel like they made them younger, but they put them in a timeline where there wasn't any, like, relevance to today. Like, make them young, make them like Tom Holland, make them that age. Like, that's what I'm talking about. In a modern setting, they would be interesting. And then you can even go as far as because, like, a lot of the X-Men have interesting backstories, and if especially if they go, like, the Ultimate Comics route where everything's more deranged, they could even do a thing where each of these people have their own movies, and then when they wanna eventually come together, they could make an X-Men movie that's like an Avengers film. So you have your Wolverine movie, you have your Jean Grey movie or whatever, and eventually down the line, they could come together into an X-Men movie, and that would be like its own Avengers.
Is Apocalypse set in the modern realm? If I'm not mistaken, I think it was.
No, was it? No. No, that was the, took place in the '80s, remember? That was the First Class sequel.
You sure?
I'm positive, yeah.
Okay, all right, fair enough. I'll give that to you. Because I thought after Days of Future Past, I thought Apocalypse was set in the now era. But if you're right, you're right.
It was 'cause Days of Future Past was the last one to have the old X-Men in it, and then Logan was technically the closing of that series of X-Men films.
well, no, Days of Future Past had both the young and old.
Yeah, yeah, that was a I mean, that was the last movie to have, like, the ones that we remember, from the Bryan Singer days, and then the,
I mean, I
Logan.
saw Apocalypse, but Apocalypse was so amazing, I've completely almost shut it out of my mind.
Understandable.
One of the other things that we've talked about, one of the other things that was talked about when it comes to the conversation that Bob Iger had with the Hollywood Reporter, and you want to check it out, it's available at hollywoodreporter.com. I want to give them all the credit for doing a well extended interview and actually getting him to talk as freely as he can about a lot of different things. Is the Disney streaming service? What are the plans? What are the goals? He gave us little hints on what he's looking forward to doing with the service. And from what I hear from what's going on with that service, they're obviously planning a lot of different things that are going to be big for it. What are your thoughts on the Disney streaming service as a whole? Is it something you're interested in? Because from the way that it was mentioned in that interview, as far as the future for the Disney franchise, it's something that they're going to rely heavily upon in the future, maybe even circumventing at some point in the future above any of the other video properties that they have, that includes ESPN, ABC, and so on and so forth, and all the other channels that they have. It looks like the Disney streaming service may be something that they're prioritizing in the future.
I like the idea of it, but again, I wanna know more, especially with all these other streaming because oh my gosh, alright, so I was having this conversation with someone earlier, and we're talking about how everyone saying like, "Hey, yeah, cancel your cable, but by the and get the streaming service," but by the time you have all these streaming services, you have the DC streaming service, you have Netflix, you have Hulu, you have HBO Go, you have Stars or whatever it is, it all adds up, and it might as well just be another cable bill. So unless the Disney like, I would love if the Disney streaming service and the DC or whatever, they could just be like little $3 add-ons on the Amazon Prime. That would be fantastic for me. But at this point, it really has to be something that is enough for me to pull me in. Like if it has all the Marvel films and I don't have to keep renting them every time I want to go watch them, that might be one thing. But if it's something that's like it's just a Disney cartoons or whatever, like I don't really have a desire to watch a lot of those most of the time. So if I'm gonna do one more monthly payment, like, it has to really be worth my time. It has to have something on there. Same thing with, like, the DC. It has maybe 1 or 2 shows that I wanna watch, but other than that, I don't see any reason to justify spending money on it.
Well, those are some of the great ideas that were discussed when it comes to. Those are some of the things that were discussed when it comes to the interview that was done again by the Hollywood Reporter with Bob Iger, the head of Disney, the CEO, the man with the plan at Disney. If you have any thoughts on that conversation in regards to what was talked about with the X-Men franchise, Star Wars, Marvel, anything that was discussed in that interview, or if you have thoughts on the direction of Disney as a whole, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Share it with us today, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, and Game Source on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. Well, like I said, coming up next, we've got Rob McCallum in the middle of the Cosmic Crossfire. After that, we have my good friend Tyler Baker from the Fantasy Football Pater podcast. He is going to be sharing his thoughts on week 3 in the NFL. Plus, after that, we've got Josh and I. We're going to be coming up right after that with our thoughts on not only why FIFA is the most underrated IP in video games, or is it? We're going to share our thoughts on that and a lot more. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. We have time to discuss what I mentioned earlier, if you want.
What were we talking? What was it? Sorry, there's a flash in the pan. What's going on?
Never mind.
It was somebody said something, right? Well, tell me, what was it?
Never mind. I forgot myself. So, folks, it sucks getting old.
Were you hoping I was going to remember and remind you?
Yes, pretty much. I had actually said something in mind else for the back end of the show, but I pretty much forgot about it. We could talk about Death Stranding if you saw the footage today. Troy Baker getting involved and all that if you want.
I did not. I didn't know that was a thing. I'll have to look that up.
That was a thing. You could talk about the Tokyo Game Show as a whole. If that is that importance as far as whatever you want to talk about, man.
All right. The only thing that I really noted of awesome from Tokyo Game Show was the Mega Man gun and Devil May Cry.
Devil May Cry 5, yeah. I'm still not excited about it. I'm sure you probably are. So, all right, we can go ahead and mention that after this.
All right, cool, man.
All right, and we're back with the show once again. It is the Pop Culture Cosmos. This is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source, along with my good friend, Mr. Josh Peterson. Want to thank so much as we head on out for the last segment of the day. Want to thank so much again, Rob McCallum, for being in the middle of the Cosmic Crossfire. You got to check out all the great stuff that he's doing at Rob McCallum Films at robmccallumfilms.com. Our good friend Tyler Baker from the Fantasy Football Pater podcast. Full episodes of the Fantasy Football Pater podcast are available each and every week on the Pop Culture Cosmos channel on all our various outlets. Speaking of the Pop Culture Cosmos, you can check our shows out on radio worldwide 7 days a week. We're now on over 15 different, actually, I think it's 16 now, different radio stations. We've got a listing of where we're at on our Pop Culture Cosmos Facebook page. There's a listing right there. You can see it day by day. And also, as well, it gives you a listing of all the podcast networks that we're on, or at least a good portion of them, because I think we're on over 30 different podcast networks with all the catchers on out there and all those podcast catchers and all that stuff like that you can get on your app, on your smartphone and whatnot. Josh, I know you got a great thing going on when it comes to Humanica Media. I know you've been working hard on a lot of other stuff behind the scenes. So can you give us a little bit of insight on what's going on with your great experience known as Humanica Media?
Yeah, we're just doing Topicocalypse right now. I've been actually had a busy week of editing weddings, so that's why we're low on content. But yeah, Topicocalypse is out there. We just did a one about education, and there's another one coming out this week about trash talking and what's the right way to do it. Why do people do it? The psychology behind it all. We get down and dirty about it. And also, you can catch us on the Podcast Radio Network on Tuesday nights at 4:30 Pacific time. Is that what we? Did I get
no? It's 4. And don't you be talking about my mama like that, please.
Oh, dang.
There you go. That's what you get for trash talking. Oh, all right, but it is Topicocalypse that is going to be part of the Attack of the Humanicans that is available on the Podcast Radio Network at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday. Apologies for my voice, everyone, but this weekend, like I said, talking for 4 hours as part of the live streaming for the Victims of Jacksonville that we did, the special event at Retro City Games, plus cheering my team on, cheering my girls soccer team on kind of gets my voice down, so apologize in advance for that. But What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Gotta go on with the show. I see. Oh, I'll tell you what, my friend. One of the things I wanted to discuss on the back end of the show is something that I think gets a little bit. I don't know. Doesn't get as much love as I think that it should. I've said this now for a long time that I think the FIFA franchise is one of the most underrated and one of the most important video game franchises out there. And I think some people are probably laughing at me when I say that right now, but the numbers prove out in the over 10 plus years FIFA games have been made. The importance to Electronic Arts as far as the number of sales it's just risen dramatically. I've told the story before and I'll say it again. When I was running game stores, I was prioritizing FIFA pre-orders over Madden pre-orders. They complained to me why I only got about 200 or 300 pre-orders for Madden and why I was getting all these pre-orders for FIFA. And I was saying it was due to what my clientele was asking for. My clientele was coming in and they were asking for FIFA, and they were, I was noticing what they were buying, and I was noticing that there was a lot of FIFAs being resold, traded in, and things of that nature. And I thought, you know what? FIFA needs to be something that's more thought about in the realm of the video game industry. And sure, at that time, and that was 2007, 2008. And look, about 10 years later, FIFA is now one of the marquee franchises in video games. It is probably one of the biggest games to come out this month. It's coming out this weekend, I believe on Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. It is going to be FIFA 19. A lot of people are looking forward to it, not just here in the United States, but around the world, all over in the UK, Australia, in Europe, Far East. They look forward to FIFA coming out each and every year, all the different things that they throw in there, all the different players, the setups, the all-stars, the pass grades. They love going ahead and involving themselves in the FIFA franchise. Your thoughts on FIFA as a video game entity? Do you think it's underappreciated like I do? Do you respect it as a video game entity? Even if you don't play it, do you still think that FIFA is one of the most important game franchises in the video game industry?
Oh, that depends. For sports, yeah, I think it's important, but the people love I don't know, man. It's like I know soccer's a big thing. It's has a growing audience, and I wouldn't necessarily say that that's the most important franchise in the gaming industry, but it
Well,
does.
I didn't say it's the most important. I didn't mean I didn't want to allude to say it's the most important in the gaming franchise interest. And I apologize for that. Obviously, when you got GTA and Fortnite and all those others running around, but with the multitude and tens of millions of sales that they generate each and every year, I think as far as like you said in the sports gaming industry, they should be considered the top franchise because they now far surpass Madden as far as sales worldwide. But I think it's also one of the most important gaming franchises in the video game industry.
Yeah, and if you notice too, anytime like new tech comes out for sports games, it's always tested on FIFA, or FIFA perfects it if it's tested on something else. But and that's cool. That's really cool. And it seems like they keep adding things to FIFA. They keep adding different you know, not just tech, but different game modes, story modes, sponsor modes, stuff like that. And they're really just a step ahead of every other gaming or sports franchise out there. Madden, NBA, like they're doing things that those franchises can't do because their fans are more I don't want to say dynamic, but the fans are more accepting of that, and they almost expect it. So that's what makes it like, when the first Halo came out on the Xbox 360 as opposed to the first Xbox, and everyone's like, yes, it's gonna be so cool because it looks so much different. Each entry into the FIFA franchise looks so much different from the last one. And I think that's something that's very important, that because the sporting franchise, as we know, they grow stagnant. So it's FIFA is always keeping it fresh. And that's one thing that, soccer fan or not, people do tend to pick up the game if their friends are playing it.
And there's a lot of DLC that's always attached these days to the FIFA franchise. That's something that it makes it even more important when it comes to a must-have sporting game. And like you said, right now, I think they prioritize themselves above anything that the Madden, NFL, NBA 2K, NBA, as far as NBA Live, NHL, even though NHL has been thought of as far as the NHL series has been thought of as a pretty good franchise with pretty good quality games, even they must take a backseat to the FIFA franchise because of the popularity as soccer, aka football, around the world is considered the number one sport everywhere outside the US. And in the US, it's still very fast growing. Still, a lot of people are getting more and more enthused about it. The World Cup is coming here in the not too distant future to the United States. So it's going to get people even more invested in FIFA and obviously the FIFA World Cup. Sometimes they do offshoots of that with the EA and that's what's going on. And that type of I lost my train of thought. And EA also has World Cup side games that they also produce that really get that really gets fans interest in going. So I really think that the FIFA franchise has really done a great job of promoting itself and just making it so important as far as not only being the marquee franchise in sports gaming, but a large enough entity that people around the world, when it comes to gaming franchises, have to take a look at it as a serious contender, not to, let's say, the GTAs of the world, but at least one of the strongest top 10 selling franchises each and every year.
Right. Yeah. And it's okay. So you look at E3, EA comes on, they do their spiel. The hype levels are so much higher for FIFA compared to some of the others. And I don't know if I'm the only one that notices that, but yeah, it's like each year gets better and people love it, and doesn't seem to wear out its welcome, especially with soccer growing its fandom very rapidly. I think that FIFA is only, they're not even near the top of the hill.
And it's funny because Pro Evolution Soccer is always, hot on their coattails as far as, it being sometimes better in quality than the FIFA franchises from year to year, but still sales wise, the FIFA series outsells the PES series quite a bit. But the PES series as a whole still sells very strongly when compared to other sports video game entities and video game properties that are out there. So it's interesting that not only does the industry worldwide support PES, but obviously still does enough to support FIFA. And I know a lot of people that actually get both FIFA and PES soccer every single year. So it's kind of interesting how that works out.
Yeah, and those are the people too who are, I don't know, I feel like they're the ones who are trying to compare the games to see which one's better. For me, it would all depend on who I know that's playing what game, and that usually determines what, if any, sports games I want to dive into. But reviewers or people who want to compare games or people who are always active in gaming communities, those are the ones who are gonna be like that. So I would honestly be curious to ask people who do play both of them which one they like better, because I think their opinion would be the one that counts.
That's true. And to me, it just looks like that when you have PES, Pro Evolution Soccer, and also the FIFA series that's out there each and every year garnering so much attention, it makes it for an enjoyable experience. And for me, it's just gives me that reinforced satisfaction that so many years ago, I was right about where the video game industry was headed when it comes to sports gamings, that they weren't just relying on Madden. And that's not to disrespect Madden in any way, shape, or form. Madden is still a very strong franchise. In fact, I saw this past weekend quite a bit of love for the Madden franchise at the tributes to the Jacksonville tragedy that we did at Retro City Games, and also as well at Press Start Gaming Center, that there was still a lot of love for Madden, but around the world there seems to be a lot more love when it comes to FIFA. And to me it's every reason why that FIFA should be considered one of the premier video game franchises right now. And if you don't think so, you take a look at the numbers and it might just change your mind. What are your thoughts on FIFA as a video game franchise? Do you think it's highly underrated like I do, or do you think it is one of the most premier video game franchises out there? Or do you think just because it's a sports game that you don't play, that it doesn't exceed anything brought out by NBA, 2K, NBA Live, Madden, or any of those other familiar video game franchises? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Also, as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanity Media, and Game Source on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. Well, my friend, we're coming down to the end of another episode. It's just an awesome time to always talking to you, my friend. I know we got a lot of stuff that we're that's in the fire when it comes to our episode coming out on Friday. Looking forward to that. But any last thoughts on maybe the Tokyo Game Show, the Tokyo Gaming Show, the Tokyo Game Show that just happened with Death Stranding, Devil May Cry, and a lot of other games that got a lot of other pub that you saw? In fact, that took a long time. It spaced itself out well when we were talking about Kingdom Hearts 3 earlier, about over almost a week ago, to where it is now when it comes to a lot of the games that are being talked about at the Tokyo Game Show and how it's regained its importance in the video game world.
Yeah, it's weird because a lot of the developers are actually making big announcements and premiering big trailers at the Tokyo Game Show, and that's something that maybe it happened once upon a time, but it's something we haven't seen in a long time. And Capcom is one who really did take advantage of the press that they had there. They put out a new trailer for the Resident Evil remake, which looks fantastic. Um, Devil May Cry 5, we saw a new trailer for that. Got to see a little bit about what the story's about and a little bit of the characters in action. And they actually said that you'd be able to use. They showed some footage of you being able to use Mega Man's Mega Blaster, and so that looks fun. And that's a uh, little thing we haven't been able to do before. Also, I know you're talking about Death Stranding, so I didn't actually get to see this one, but tell me about it.
Well, the big news from that is not only was it more gameplay, and when you're saying gameplay, when it comes to a Kojima game, I don't know if you can actually call it game playing per se. It's more like game experiencing to me. And there was more game experiencing with a new character that was introduced, which is being voiced by veteran voice actor that a lot of people think is one of the best, if not the best in the industry, Troy Baker, which got a lot of interest from the outlets out there. I noticed it got a lot of pub and it, just got a lot of worldwide notice when it comes to this type of game. And with Norman Reedus that's already been shown in detail as far as being the lead protagonist in the game, and you've got all those other elements that they've already talked about and already shown at past E3 and other points in time. It's starting to shape up as a definitely wild ride from Kojima, but it's something that I may be very interested in picking up.
Yeah, I want to know. It looks cool. It looks like a beautiful game. Looks dark and haunting. I want to know more about it though, because from what I like, they had made some vague references about it being like an always online game, and I don't understand that. Like, I don't. It looks like a big story experience, but I don't understand the idea of it being always online. That
The only thing I can say, maybe because it's supposed to look like a single player experience to me, is that maybe the experience itself changes and gets fed in from you for you online, depending on what decisions. Like, I'm wearing Mass Effect right now. Remember, Mass Effect was one of the first true games that gave you a decision. Okay, if I'm going to say this, this is going to happen. If I'm going to say this, that is going to happen. Maybe it's going to come down to a point where Death Stranding may be a type of game where if you go in one direction, this might be fed into your system to go ahead and experience. If you go on, take a right turn instead of a left turn, this may happen. Then may be just too big for any, I guess, disc to hold or anything of that nature. And it could be so immersive that you might need to be always online to get that type of continual feed of information so that it can expand the game even further.
Oh, so it needs to always be pumping content from online.
I'm just guessing. When you mentioned that statement, that's the first thing when it comes to mind for me, and when it comes to a Kojima type game.
That makes sense. I get that. Yeah, I mean it looks I think that it's gonna be like nothing we've ever seen before. It has a lot of cutting edge stuff, and not just technology wise, but story wise. I think he's going to tell a story that it's going to tread grounds that we've never been on before. It kind of in the same way that God of War took a very emotional route from point A to point B. I think that uh, Kojima's going to do something that's really going to push the boundaries, not just of gameplay, but of how we're capable of comprehending video game stories.
I hope so. And it looks like something that we're all going to be looking forward to. I know you and I will be talking more about it in the future. And when it comes to Kojima and Death Stranding, it's something that's really going to leave a lot of different opinions out there as far as, well, just it could be way out there because when it comes to Kojima and video games, you never know where it's going to end up. What are your thoughts on the latest footage when it comes to Death Stranding? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Also, share us your thoughts on the Tokyo Game Show. Has it now regained a lot of its importance within the video game world, or do you think it ever lost it? Share us your thoughts, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanity Media, and Game Source on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. Well, my friend, it's been another great episode that we had today. Just cannot thank you enough for being part of it. Any last thoughts on the way out?
Yes, we'll be making an announcement soon. I know we keep saying that, but we will because I'm working hard on it actually as we speak. So, yeah, stay tuned for that.
Stay tuned for that indeed. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the Pop Culture Cosmos. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great day. Before we head on out, my friend, I want to make sure everybody goes ahead and if they can at all, please let us know. Please support our great friends. If you can, you hear their stuff. We help them out as far as just promoting their products, and hopefully you'll give everybody a chance and be able to check out as soon as you can. You'll be able to check out and get interest in some of the stuff that we're doing as far as with Vitabrace. You got to check them out. Wheelie Q barbecue sauces and rubs. Also, our good friends at Rob McCallum Films, and also Retro City Games. Please check them out. They not only give us a hand on a lot of stuff, but they truly are great people. And also, they have great products to look at indeed. Back to the finger.